Chiefs Kingdom? Gary McKenzie, your host, back at you again for another episode of Gridiron Lines. And I've got a fun video today. I'm really excited to show it to you. But first, I want to start by apologizing about last week. Usually, I have my videos released on Thursday. I wasn't able to have the time to make that video because on Wednesday night, the night I usually make these videos, I was at a concert for The Darkness in Kansas City. It was at the Truman. I had a really great time there. I love rock music, and The Darkness is one of my favorite bands, back in the early 2000s. Really liked a lot of their songs. So I had a blast at the concert. If anyone was there, let me know in the comments. It was a pretty good show. But I was mostly sad that I wasn't able to make the video because one of my favorite plays of the season happened versus the Vikings, and I really wanted to talk with you all about it, or at least show you the highlight.
All the guys up here, Jim. You got to get this ball out.
Here comes Hunter. There's Mahomes. And Mahomes' pass is caught.
So who had Justin Watson going Randy Moss on the Vikings defense, wearing that number 84 that Moss used to wear, doing it in Minnesota? What a play, and I did not expect that play from Justin Watson. But, of course, the following week versus the Broncos, he has to go and hurt his elbow. And now the Chiefs are shuffling around trying to find a player to fill his shoes. And what do you know? The Jets were willing to trade Mecole Hardman back to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs got him for a pretty cheap deal, I think around $4 million, swapped late-round picks. So, all in all, I think this is a win for the Chiefs offense, who has been needing some help, or who have been needing some help at the wide receiver position. As of last week, after the Broncos game, the Chiefs' leading wide receiver on this team is Rashee Rice. Now, I told you all he was my draft crush going into the draft, and sure enough, the Chiefs draft him. He currently has 245 yards receiving to lead the Chiefs' wide receivers. Justin Watson has 219. Sky Moore has 145 yards receiving. And then MVS has 116. Kadarius Toney hasn't done much of anything, and Richie James has barely sniffed the field. So the Chiefs are needing help at the wide receiver position, but also watching Rashee Rice's game versus the Broncos, it's apparent the Chiefs are starting to involve him more in the offense. He's getting more snaps, and he's making plays like this to reward the Chiefs' faith in him.
I thought Mahomes might be going out for a pass there.
That may happen sooner than later. That's caught. Rashee Rice, and the rookie will set up a first.
I think with Rashee Rice's ability to gain yards after catching the ball, be strong at the point of attack, and getting upfield with good burst, good quickness, puts him in a really good position to catch a lot of underneath routes for this Chiefs team. I think if the Chiefs start to throw him the ball more often on those short routes underneath, it's going to open up a lot of things down the field because defenses are going to have to start to respect that. And then what do you know? If Rashee Rice starts getting more yards, then guys like MVS and Kadarius Toney and soon Mecole Hardman are going to get yards because of that. And I've heard a lot of grumbling about the Chiefs wide receiver group on Twitter, on the internet. The talking heads are all talking about this Chiefs wide receiver group being the weakness of this team. And I went back and I crunched some numbers. Over the last 6 seasons, through the first 6 weeks of the season, I tallied up the total yards for the wide receiver group for each season. So in 2018, the Chiefs wide receivers had 978 yards. 2019, 1,180. 2020, 988. 2021, their best year, 1,207 yards. 2022, 1,048. And then in 2023, coming in dead last out of that group, 858. So while this is the worst offensive output for the wide receiver group for the Chiefs, since Mahomes has been the starter, I'm not going to say this is a catastrophic gap. In fact, this is a gap that can be closed as the season continues, as Mahomes gets more repetition with these new wide receivers that he's working with, particularly Rashee Rice, who I think the Chiefs have something in him. I think that this is a gap that can be closed as the season goes on and the team improves at that position. And then nextly, I want to ask the question is, if going into 2023, I told you the biggest weakness of this Chiefs team would be their passing attack to their wide receivers, you would have looked at me and said, Well, I guess that things are going pretty well for the Chiefs because when Mahomes is running the show, he's going to get that thing figured out, and it's not going to be a weakness for long if it will be a weakness at all. So that moves me to the next point. The reason everyone's talking about the Chiefs wide receivers is because they can't talk about the defense. The Chiefs defense has been awesome this year, and it was great to get Nick Bolton back versus the Broncos last week, and he made an impact play almost immediately.
Play action. Good pocket. Intercepted at the 42-yard line.
Yes, indeed. It is nice to have you back, Mr. Bolton. Let's see us make some more plays as the season goes on. Awesome work versus the Broncos. And the Chiefs defense as a whole has been playing the best that they ever have during the Mahomes era. Before the season started, I told everyone pairing Mahomes with an elite defense would be my dream team. So while people are complaining about the offense not scoring as much points as they usually do, I'm over here in heaven knowing that the Chiefs have their best chance of going to the Super Bowl with this group. I think more so than any year in the past because they are a complete team. Their defense currently ranks second in the NFL, allowing 14.7 points per game. You pair that with Mahomes, who can beat these guys other than the Lions during week one when they didn't have Chris Jones and they didn't have Travis Kelce. So we'll see what happens for the rest of the year. But you know how I took the first 6 weeks of the last 6 years for the Chiefs wide receivers? I did the same thing for the defense. You wanted numbers, so I'm giving you numbers. And here's how it panned out. In 2018, through the first 6 weeks of the Chiefs, in 2018 for the first 6 weeks of the season, the Chiefs defense gave up 28.7 points. In 2019, they gave up 24 points. In 2020, they gave up 21.7 points per game. In 2021, they gave up a whopping 29.3 points per game. 2022, they gave up 24.8 points per game. And then in 2023, they've given up a measly 14.7 points per game. This Chiefs defense paired with Mahomes should be illegal if you're asking me. And not to mention, yes, the wide receiver production is down, but it's nowhere near as down as the points per game allowed that the defense has put forward. The defense, from a percentage standpoint, is playing incredibly well compared to the last 6 seasons. And on top of that, if you look at the years where the Chiefs had the best defensive points per game, 2019, 2020, 2022, what's the similarity of each of those seasons? Ah, yes, the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl each of those years, and they won 2 out of 3 of those. Now, the Chiefs do need to improve things on offense, but from a defensive standpoint, this group is primed and ready to go and leading this Chiefs team, in my opinion. The Chiefs offense can rely on the defense more so this year than they have in any year during Mahomes' era, and I love to see it. And how did the Chiefs do it? So the Chiefs defense has been a mostly homegrown unit. So only one player on this Chiefs defense has a starting role and was traded for or picked up via free agency, and that's Justin Reed. All the other Chiefs players on this defense have been drafted and developed in-house. Starting in 2020, the Chiefs made a vested interest in drafting players, defensive players, early on in the draft. So of the Chiefs starters and key players, they have 3 first-round picks: Karlaftis, McDuffie, and Udike Uzomah. 3 second-rounders: Chris Jones, Willie Gay, Nick Bolton. A couple third-rounders: Chenal and Cook, and then you've got L'Jarius Sneed in the 4th round. So the Chiefs have made significant investments on the defensive side of the ball, and you're starting to see that come into fruition in 2023, and that's all highlighted by an awesome 2022 draft that Brett Veach had, using some of those Tyreek Hill picks to get a lot of players on the defense. So while the rest of the NFL was zigging to catch up with the Chiefs offense, the Chiefs zagged and went defensive-minded, went for a defensive approach, and it's paying off, and I have a feeling it's going to pay off for the rest of the year. I think they're going to make a push for the Super Bowl. In fact, I would be surprised at this point in time if this unit, especially if this defense keeps playing the way they do, I'd be surprised if the Chiefs didn't make it to the Super Bowl this year. But moving on to the Chargers. So the Chargers so far in 2023 have let's see here. They have the 7th best offense in terms of points per game scored, and the 8th best offense in terms of yards per game. Their passing attack is 5th most in yards, 4th most in passing touchdowns. Justin Herbert's done a very good job of taking care of the football. Their rushing attack is middle of the league. So their offensively, this team is very good, and it's led by Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen. So this is the two-headed monster for this team in terms of their passing attack, and they make a lot of plays like this throughout the season.
Third down and 4. Kelly is the back. Herbert to the air. Kelly the block, and Herbert downfield. Caught. Allen.
So it's going to be another test for Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed to try and stop this Chargers passing attack. And really, their passing defense should be focused on trying to slow Keenan Allen down. Herbert so far this year has 1,033 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a completion percentage of 68.7%, and a rating of 101.7. So he's had a pretty good year. Justin Herbert's a real deal. Another good test for the Chiefs, facing a top 10 offense in the NFL in Arrowhead this Sunday. I'm looking forward to see McDuffie continue to show the NFL why he's the guy in Kansas City alongside L'Jarius Sneed. So the third part of this, monster for the LA Chargers, I mentioned they had a two-headed monster in the passing attack, but the rushing attack has Austin Eckler, and he's really the third part of their trio that really makes that offense tick. So he's the third head for that three-headed monster if you're looking at the entire offense. And he broke one versus the Dolphins, and he's capable of breaking one versus the Chiefs too.
Herbert. Eckler. Oh, he's got the big hole into the secondary. Look at him run. Chase downfield. Holland gets him.
Austin Eckler is a pretty good running back, so the Chiefs defense will have their work cut out for them trying to slow him down. But if the Chiefs defense can limit the looks for Keenan Allen and limit Austin Eckler to a low yards per carry total, I think this defense is going to keep chugging along. And, speaking of defense, let's look at the Chargers defense right now, which has been pretty suspect. They're 23rd in points allowed, 31st in yards allowed, so they've allowed the second most yards in the NFL. They've allowed a lot of passing yards. They've allowed the most passing yards in the NFL, and they've done a terrible job at stopping teams from scoring passing touchdowns, a bad job at intercepting the ball. So their passing defense has been a major weakness for this team, and their rushing defense has been pretty mediocre. So the Chiefs last week saw a Broncos team who had a very poor passing defense, or very poor overall defense, and they still couldn't put up a lot of points versus the Broncos. Some of you might say maybe this was a practice game. They kind of walked through it. I'm not going to go there. I don't want to bring up any of those conspiracies, but I do think that the game plan was pretty vanilla versus the Broncos, and maybe they expand things a bit versus the Chargers. I really want to see them start hitting Rashee Rice more on those underneath routes with Mahomes. I think that's going to open up a lot of things on the offense. But overall, for this game, the Chiefs are currently listed as a 5-point favorite in Arrowhead. The SRS score from Pro Football Reference suggests that they should be about a 6-point favorite. I personally think that the Chiefs are a 6.5-point favorite in this game, since the game is at Arrowhead and their defense has been playing so well. And I've been making picks all throughout the year for the Chiefs. Currently, I'm 7-12, which is above 500, so that's good. And I think that the Chiefs cover the spread. I think they win by more than 5 points, and I also think that they win outright. So maybe I can go to 9-14, really improve my numbers. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about this game? Do you think that the Chiefs are going to beat the spread? The over-under is 48.5 points. Do you think that's too low, too high? Let me know in the comments. As always, really appreciate you sticking around and watching this video. I actually ran into a viewer for the first time while I was out and about doing some shopping. I won't mention where I saw him or anything, but Ron, you know who you are. It was nice to meet you, shake your hand, and thank you for watching. And I'd shake all your all's hands too if I could meet you. And just really wanted to say that I appreciate you for making RGR what it is, for making my channel what it is. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for you all. I've got nothing but love and appreciation for all of you. Thanks for stopping by and watching the video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button too if you haven't done so already. We're trying to get to 30,000. It's a battle. We're fighting. We're clawing. We're biting kneecaps. We're doing whatever we can to get there. But we can't do it without your help. So if you like the content here, there's plenty more where this comes from. And hit that subscribe button if you can. With that said, this is Gary, Gridiron Line, signing out. Here's to another Chiefs victory, and their dominance of the AFC West continues versus the Chargers on Sunday. Let's go, Chiefs.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.